What is going on, gunfighters? Today, another Cartridge episode. The 350 Legend. Now, I don't like this cartridge's existence, and that's not because it's a bad cartridge. I'll explain in the episode. Anyway, if you like this podcast, make sure you're liked and subscribed. Feel free to share it. Hopefully you share it with a friend or two that might enjoy it, this episode or any other. Leave a comment, leave a review. Hey gunfighters, real quick for this week, if you are not a listener or subscribed to Alpha Male Podcast, just wanted to let you know that last week was a week of knife content, and this week is a week of urban survival content, urban EDC, how to get out of the city, when to get out of the city. If you live in an urban, suburban, what I would call people hive environment, and you don't normally listen to Alpha Male Podcasts, perhaps in particular these 2 weeks will interest you, so maybe go check that out on Alpha Male Podcast. Hopefully you're subscribed to both and this is not news to you. But I thought it would be a good time for a reminder. I'll put in the shortest version of the bio I have recorded, and then we'll get into the 350 Legend. Bio. First and foremost, I am a Christian. That is number one in my life, serving God, following Jesus. Combat veteran, served in the United States Marine Corps and the Army. Also law enforcement veteran, private contractor, state rifle and pistol champion. Professional big game hunter and guide. If you feel called to support, check out Patreon. There should be a link in the show notes. With that, I am your host, Michael Milito, and I am blessed to serve you today. Okay, so my attitude towards the 350 Legend can probably accurately be summed up as somewhere between disdain and indifference. And again, that's nothing to do with the performance of the cartridge. Here's why. It exists because of a law that I don't think makes a lot of sense. I think that if you live in America and you hunt in America, you ought to be able to hunt with normal cartridges. I'm talking cartridges that have been around since the 1800s. Right? You should be able to hunt with bottleneck Spitzer type cartridges no matter where you live. Period. End of sentence. Observe your firearm safety rules. Also, if you were going to make a special season, I would really like to have seen a retro season, as you might call it. Let's say limited to American cartridges pre-1898. So we'd be talking 30-30s, 45-70, and the like, and similar technology. So lever action, single shots, doubles, bolt action rifles, and those calibers, if that's what you were worried about. But no, they came up and different places have different rules, but a straight-walled season. And this is what the 350 Legend was birthed out of. And reason with me how this makes sense. You can hunt with an AR-15 in 350 Legend. Apparently the season is for safety or whatever. But a lever-action Winchester model 1894 and 30-30 Winchester is dangerous. But you can hunt with an AR and 350 Legend. In what way does that make sense? You can hunt with a AR and 350 Legend, but not a lever-action Winchester model 94 and 30-30 Winchester. Anyway, that's my issue with the 350 Legend. Let me put that on the shelf for a little while and talk about the performance of the 350 Legend, because it's, again, not a bad cartridge from a performance standpoint. It was designed for these straight-walled states, these straight-walled legislation, and as such, it's straight-walled. That just basically means there's no neck, as you would see on a 308, a 30-06, similar modern rifle cartridges, even a 30-30. It's more akin to like a 45-70, where the diameter of the bullet, the brass case basically goes straight back to the rim, and that's a straight-walled cartridge. This is still most common today in most handgun rounds. 38 Special, 357, 44 Magnum, things like that. As you might denote from the nomenclature, 350 is 35 caliber, which, to give you an idea, is right around 9mm. 9mm is .355. 355, if you know, is pretty close to .357, as in the 357 Magnum, and also confusingly the 38 Special. They use .357 diameter bullets, as does the 350 Legend. It's about the same overall length, not exactly, but it's about the same overall length as a 223. Is designed to be fired in AR-15s, among other things. Bolt-action rifles, obviously, hunting rifles because of the legislation, but also in an AR-15. So if you picture a straight-walled cartridge, about like a 357 Magnum, about the length of a 223, then that'll get you, ta-da, to the 350 Legend. To give credit where credit is due, I'm going to get some of this information, like the technical stuff that I'm not sure about, off of Wikipedia. History. 2019, so she's pretty new, and that came out at SHOT Show at 2019, so that's a pretty new thing. Maximum pressure 55,000 psi, which for a cartridge like this is pretty good, right? You're talking I'm going to say normal rifle cartridge, it's pretty low on that totem pole, but if you're talking like comparing it to a pistol round, it's rather hot, so it's somewhere in the middle. Let's look at it from a pure performance standpoint. You're talking, and this comes from Wikipedia, test barrel of 20 inches, 160 grain bullet, Federal Fusion load at 2,300 feet a second. That's not bad. It's not a bad load. That's a good load, and certainly suitable for deer at close ranges, which is what it was designed for. And I think they did that, to give them credit, the makers of this cartridge, which would be Winchester. It's a Winchester cartridge. And it's not Winchester's fault that these laws exist, right? That's not on them. Not their fault. It just is. So, knowing that this existed, they designed, I think, a pretty decent performing round. If their goal was, the best straight wall you could probably design that was perfectly adequate for whitetail deer at reasonable ranges, because at the states where this is a thing, whitetail is pretty much what you got. And they wanted it probably to fit into an AR-15, because an AR-15, aside from what it tries to get painted at in the media, is America's most popular rifle, model. So it only makes sense to get around that with chamber in that. Now, certainly many a deer have been taken with 223 5.56. I've done a whole episode on hunting with the AR, and I've likely touched on it many times in other topics. I think one will be coming out on rifle ballistic basics, but many times I've talked about this. You can kill a deer with a 223. That's pretty obvious because many have been. But if you were telling me I had to hunt deer with an AR, and I had to pick between this and a 5.56, I would pick this. This is better for hunting deer. I think I can say that. If you're going to hunt deer, whitetail deer, at the ranges that most any big game animal, let alone whitetail deer, are taken at, which is inside of 200 yards, yeah, I'm going to go with this. It's better for that. It was made for that. The 5.56 was not made for that. It was made for wounding communist, Soviet, pack country, partisan soldiers on the battlefields of Europe or wherever else, right? This was designed for whitetail deer. So, going back to the load, 160 grain Federal Fusion at 2,300. You got 165 grain load from Hornady at 2,200. And 180 grain at 2,100. Looking on Midway USA, which I have no affiliation with, but other than I have used that site for a long time, I bought a lot of stuff off of Midway, but they're not giving me money to tell you this. I'm just looking on there for their available ammo. Since it's a Winchester load, and I do like the Winchester XP, I've killed many an animal with that load, not in 350 Legend, but in another caliber. But they make the Deer Season XP Winchester, which is likely a very good load, and that's 150 grain at 23.25. So a 150 at $23.25. Now let's look at the classic, storied, got a lot of street cred in the hunting world for white-tailed deer. Also, a Winchester cartridge. The 30-30 Winchester, as we alluded to, since the 1800s. Just by coincidence or whatever, they also load 150 grain 30-30. Let's look at what it's doing. Same Winchester XP loading. Winchester 30-30, 150 grain at $23.90. That's $2,300 and something. The other one's $2,300 and something. Not enough difference really to make a difference. You're talking a $23.90 versus $23.25. So the 30-30 is a few fractions more powerful than the 350 Legend. So again, you can hunt with the 350 Legend totally fine, but your old lever action 30-30, that's unsafe, unacceptable for whatever reason. But if you look at that compared to the 30-30, it's pretty much identical. Now, it's not exactly the same because you are talking about a .357 diameter bullet instead of a .308 diameter bullet. So sectional densities and things like that are going to be different. But at the ranges you're talking about these cartridges being used for, let's say 200 yards and in, sectional density, ballistic coefficient, on a white-tailed deer, it's mostly academic. So if you want to think about it as a 30-30 that you could chamber in a AR-15, that's kind of cool. That's pretty neat. That being said, if you were looking for a good brush gun caliber in an AR, like if AR is just what you like, it's your bread and butter, you're a veteran, or maybe you've grown up in the gun culture 2.0 where AR-15s and Glocks or similar, that's pretty much what you know, and that's what you want to know, and you don't want to branch out and have a lever action 30-30. That doesn't appeal to you at all. You want a good brush gun in an AR platform. Well, the 30-30 has been the 30-30 Winchester lever action has been a light, handy, good brush gun carbine, both east and west of the Mississippi for well over 100 years. If you can duplicate that performance in an AR, that's pretty cool. So, putting my annoyance aside with why the cartridge exists, if you were looking for that, that's pretty cool. You get 30-30 like performance in a cartridge you can chamber in an AR-15. Again, if AR-15s are what you know, like the thought of picking up a rifle without a pistol grip just, confounds you. That's just, it feels foreign to your hands. You're normally picking up a rifle with a pistol grip. And you want to hunt like that. Hey, that's fine. I want to get more hunters out in the woods. Despite what a lot of hunters might think, I think we need more hunters out in the woods. If you look at a lot of the eastern deer populations, they up the limits and up the limits and up the limits, over the years because there are so many deer. And I think there are less people as a percentage, less American families, I think, as a percentage, probably hunt than did years ago, even though there's way more deer. And you'd have to look and verify that for yourself, but it seems like that with the liberal limits they have in many eastern states. So if we get more hunters out there hunting where they would be willing to hunt with an AR-15, but they're just not gonna, get that lever action 30-30 or anything else. That's AR is their platform. If it gets more people out there hunting, that's a good thing. It certainly, I think, is a capable round on white-tailed deer. If you look at it compared to a 30-30, which is known for being a great white-tailed deer caliber, if you look at it compared to like a 357 Magnum out of a carbine, same diameter bullet, look at the ballistics on that. We're not talking handgun ballistics, we're talking rifle ballistics, carbine ballistics. You get quite a step up in performance on the 357 Magnum. You look at that compared to this cartridge, and both of those are known for being good white-tailed deer cartridges. So this one obviously would be too. From a performance standpoint, it's a decent white-tailed deer medium-sized game cartridge. If you are dictated by a magistrate to use a straight-walled cartridge, that's what this was designed for. So for that, this is an option. Also, this was designed to hunt deer in an AR. So if you really want to hunt deer in an AR, this is an option. Not the only option for either one of those, but it's an option, and it was designed for that. So it's a solid option. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the 350 Legend. Not a bad cartridge from a performance standpoint. That said and said, of the tactical tip, I think I'll throw out some things that you could also use in both of these scenarios if you were able. This is a situation that applies to you. I really like the Ruger 77s. They make them in 77 357 and 77 44. Either one of those, a 357 or a 44 mag in a carbine, a light, handy stainless steel carbine like Ruger makes, would be a really cool, handy option. Also, obviously, the lever actions, whether that be Rossi or Winchester or Marlin in 357 44 Magnum. Good choices. And if you're looking for a good whitetail deer cartridge in an Ar-15 with proper loadings, proper bullet construction, the 6.5 Grendel, the 6.8 SPC, which would probably be the one that I would go with if I were doing that, especially if I wanted a dual-purpose hunting whitetail deer and a decent defensive cartridge. It was developed, for SOCOM as a fighting round. So the 6.8 SPC would be a good choice for that. And with proper bullet construction, not all of the loads, but in the right proper grain weight spectrum and proper bullet construction, the 300 Blackout also is a fine cartridge for that. Anyway, just some thoughts there. Your tactical verse of the day. Did a Bible study today on Patreon, talking about Genesis. All the way back in Genesis chapter 1. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." You are a man, made in the image of God. Don't be afraid to have dominion over your environment. With that, men, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.